Hi there and welcome to On the Hotplate. On the Hotplate is a short video series with short reviews of what research is telling us concerning hot topics around food sustainability to help food service to make more informed decisions. My name's Will Nicholson, I'm the founder of Interfood. Interfood uses research and technology to help food service businesses to serve more healthy, profitable and sustainable meals. You can find out about us at interfood.no. Episode 1. What does less but better meat really mean? Most people will have heard that food systems contribute around 30% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions, and that livestock is a key player in this, with livestock contributing around 15% on its own. So meat, fish and dairy is the big deal when it comes to food and climate change. There are obviously issues around food waste and so on, but we're not going to talk about that just yet. So when you look at the climate change impacts of, for example, a kilo of food, you get a graph that looks a bit like this. So there's a strong argument to be eating less meat when it comes to climate change. But what about other indicators, such as land use, water use, eutrophication? So think of that in terms of nutrients being leached from the soil into natural habitats. What about energy use? Well, there's a big signal from research that shows that generally speaking, the trend is the same, that the products with high carbon footprints have high land use, high water use, high eutrophication potential, higher energy use. And generally, this holds true for nutritional comparisons as well. There are obviously trade-offs in this. There are obviously exemptions and examples where it bucks the trend, but generally speaking, the trend is quite clear. If you want a good example of some research about this reference at the bottom will help you out. So how can we define better? If we want to eat less but better meat, what does better really mean? Well, we can look at it in two different ways. We can look at things like welfare and standards, or we can look at environmental impacts that are based on research. Both are equally valid. So let's look at welfare and standards first. You might want to look at high animal welfare, appropriate antibiotic use, workers' rights, food safety and traceability, certifications such as Marine Stewardship Council for seafood. All of these are more like qualitative based metrics that help you to see this product is on this dimension better than another. For example, a chicken breast that's come from high welfare produced chicken as opposed to very intensively produced chicken. These are all good, valid things to do. But what about better for the planet in a real environmental perspective? For most indicators, as we've seen, beef will score badly, and this makes chicken and pork seem better in this context. But is this too simplistic? Let's have a quick look. What about land use change for animal feed? In South America alone, 4 million hectares of natural habitat are lost every year for soy, and globally 75% of soy and maize production is for animal feed. In fact, poultry alone consumes 40% of the world's animal feed, and poultry and pig production is a key driver here. To add to that, the calories from animal feed could actually feed over 3 billion people from a calorific perspective. So we're not talking about diverse diets, but just the calories that are produced on the land where that food goes to animals. That's enough calories for 3 billion people. So it's not just about the carbon footprint. And we don't feed every single chicken, every single pig, and every single cow the same feed. There's lots of diversity in food systems. So how can we make a bit more sense about this to make better decisions? Well, if you look at the FAO, their research shows that around 70% or maybe higher of the GHG, greenhouse gas emissions for pigs and poultry, is down to the animal feed itself. So if you want to have chicken breast with a lower carbon footprint than another chicken breast, the key driver there is going to be the feed that was given to those chickens. The same for pork. And the type of feed influences the greenhouse gas emissions, but it also influences what I call the competitive land use. So how much land has been required to produce feed for that chicken, for that pig, when that land could have been used to produce food that was fed directly to humans. So it's in competition with our food chain. And then obviously there's land use change, so deforestation, so soy being a really good example. if animals are being fed a lot of soy and that's driving deforestation, as opposed to animals that are being fed brewer's grain, barley, and so on that isn't driving deforestation, there's a strong argument to say that the latter is better. So we can start to pick apart what we mean by better from an environmental perspective. But what about beef? There's always been a bit of an argument about whether grass-fed beef is better. In actual fact, research is starting to show that there isn't such a strong case or a strong argument for the idea of carbon neutral beef. I'm not going to go into it in detail, but you can look up the Food Climate Research Network's Grazed and Confused report from 2017 that is very good. And in fact, the Tillman and Clark reference that I showed you earlier finds that there's no significant difference across different indicators for grass-fed beef versus more concentrate-fed beef. Now, one thing Tillman and Clark don't do is they don't differentiate between the type of land use, and this is when it gets quite interesting. The type of land use and the feed source is important. So if you've got beef that's being mainly grazed on grassland that can't be used to produce crops, then that's better than if it's beef that's just being fed soy the whole time, because of the impact soy has on deforestation and so on. It might not have a lower carbon footprint, and it's not competing with human food in terms of a land use perspective. So less but better does not mean cut out beef and just eat loads of pork and chicken. But it does mean eat less animal products in general and focus on animal welfare. Focus on antibiotics, food safety, certifications, climate change impacts. So yes, beef does matter because it has a high carbon footprint. It doesn't mean just eat loads of pork and chicken, but beef does matter. Find out about the feed and competitive land use impacts of the meat you're buying. Can you buy chicken that has got lower competitive land use impacts? And then land use change. So can you buy chicken and pork and beef that is not, or that is minimizing its contributions to deforestation and so on? And if you buy less, then it's easier for you to focus on the meat that you do buy meeting these criteria. So that's what less but better really means. Hope this is useful. If you want to find out a little bit more about how you can implement this in your workplace, in your food service business, get in touch with us. We can help you out.